My name is Jill, aka Lola, and I've been making this little video series. It was something that I envisioned for a while since I started writing the album, about sharing honest and vulnerable songs with you all. And then I had this idea to just kind of give a raw version, so literally make an acoustic version and then to talk about it on the internet and share my most inner feelings and insecurities. So let's get to it. So a lot of people have reached out to me and talked to me about the song 21, and it's pretty obvious what it's about. I don't do very good at like metaphorical songs. It's kind of just more straight to the point, straight from my diary. Maybe I can make a melody out of it. But this song was really hard to write, and it was really hard when I would practice it and I was in the process of writing it and then even recording it. Like, I was just like, oh, I don't want to show anybody this. It just like, it kind of made me cringe because you don't want people to see that side of you and that vulnerability, and you just feel kind of like ashamed. And I wasn't at a point yet where I wanted to share it when we were even recording it. And I was even like scared to kind of like show it to my producer. And so I was just like, crap, like I don't know what people are gonna think about me putting this out. But I'm finally at a point where I feel like I can talk about it, and this isn't a video to make you like feel bad for me or just to make myself seem like I'm having such a hard time. But this is more now of a hopeful video, that I'm at a point in my life and with my eating disorder that I can talk about it with optimism, and I can talk about it as I'm recovering. And I think that the whole purpose of it is, one, for like my family especially, but my friends too, that just have wanted to support me but don't get it. And that's okay. I don't think most people get it. I didn't even get it. I'm still learning it to understand how this all works. But I think a lot of times they don't really know how to comfort or help. And sometimes there's not that much they can do to help, but this is for everybody that kind of wants a view into what's actually going on. And it's also for people that are dealing with the same thing or similar things. You know, everybody's story is gonna be different. But I know that when I go on the internet and I go on Pinterest or whatever, I'll look up like recovery quotes and like self-love posts and things like that, because it helps me so much to feel less alone. So where it all kind of started, I told my eating disorder specialist when she was talking to me, she's like, all right, where did it start? And I was like, okay, this month on my mission when I was in New York. And she's like, I don't think it did. It's like, okay, well, awesome. I know it did. And she was just like, you know what, like, I want you to think back to like high school, middle school, your childhood, about things that might have triggered an eating disorder and habits you may have had that you didn't even notice that you were doing. So I thought about it, and we rooted it back to when I was like 7 years old. I have had a lot of issues like with my stomach, just being really sensitive to a lot of foods and getting really sick, and nobody really wants to hear that stuff, so I'll let you look it up if you want to look it up. But I just had gained this fear of food, and it wasn't 100% fear, so I would eat and like food pretty much most of the time, but then there'd be so many times, at least like once a day, when I would get really sick, and that gave me so much anxiety. Because what if you're at like a friend's birthday party, or you're like, I don't know, you're out where there is no bathroom or whatever, like it was painful. So it just like scared me a lot, and I dealt with that for years. So I had this unhealthy relationship with food, and it got into high school when I was just getting so sick of it, because I was just like, all right, I have no money. So when I'd work, all my money is going to gas for me to go out with my friends to eat food that makes me gain weight and makes me sick. So I just went through this battle of like going back and forth with it and like kind of having like a frenemy in food. And it just continued to get worse. So I had those fears with food. And then I also had just like insecurities about like myself and just the way I looked. And like nobody wants to admit that, but we all do. Like especially in like middle school and high school. I don't know what it is. I was thinking about it today that like I grew up in a beautiful place with beautiful people. And I'm sure anybody could come here to Encinitas and they could go to La Costa Canyon High School and be like, wow, there's like a lot of pretty people. Like, it's odd to me that I'm like, wow, how do people look like this? But everybody kind of looked the same to me. And I kind of saw like, okay, like boys like those girls and those girls, they're tall, they're blonde, they're skinny, they're not Asian, they play sports. So I was like, awesome, like nobody will ever like me. And I just battled that. So I tried to just like distract myself and do a lot of things and be involved with things. And it worked. I was really involved with like student government and like clubs and school clubs, not in the clubs. But I just never really addressed it. And it wasn't until I went to college in Hawaii that finally I looked like people, and people thought those people were pretty. And I thought they were pretty. Like I would see like these local girls like going out to surf, and they looked more like me than they looked like my friends. And to me, I finally felt better about myself. I didn't feel completely good, but it made me feel like, wow, like I guess other people do like girls who look different. So that was really helpful to me. And I continued to kind of struggle with food, but I kind of just worked through it, and I loved my freshman year there. And then I went on a mission for my church for 19 months. And as a missionary, as a full-time missionary, usually you're put into an area where there's a ward, or like a congregation of people in your area, of church members, and they sign up to feed you. And depending on the area, sometimes like we got fed like once a week maybe. But sometimes we got fed every single day, sometimes twice a day. And that was like scary as hell for me, because at the very beginning of my mission too, it was like really bad. That I was like, you know what? I'm going on a mission. God's gonna protect me and like heal my stomach. And that's not always how it works. Like you just have to pay attention to how your body works, and mine did not work like that. So I didn't really notice it until like the end of like my first couple months, and it was like I gained so much weight, like, which wasn't a bad thing, which I didn't get then, but I just ate and ate, but to a point where I overstuffed myself because I didn't want to be rude, and I wanted to show that I was grateful, and I was just like nervous, so I barely talked, so I was like like just trying to eat everything. And it's like heavy food there. It was like the middle of winter. I got there like the week of Christmas. It's like snowy or rainy and cold, and that was like a comfort thing. But then it would give me anxiety because right after we ate, we went out and worked. It was from 6 to 9 that we were knocking doors, we were on the street, we were talking to people. Like that was freaking go time. And I hated it that I would like get really sick afterwards and be like, ugh, I like feel like I literally can't do this. And like there were only like a few times where I like literally had to go home to the apartment, but I was over it. And so when I got to like my next couple areas, I kind of like cut back a little bit, and I was getting better at portioning my food, probably to like a healthy portion. I was like moderately exercising, and I loved the members. I was talking a lot, and I felt like I was getting good at it. So we walked a lot. I was at a good point, and I kind of lost that like little bit of like baby weight that I just like gained at the beginning. And I felt pretty decent about myself. Most of the time, you don't even have enough time to think about yourself. So it's not like you're so consumed in it then, which is good. You're like thinking about other people, and you love them so much, and you pray for them, and you do all these things for them where you literally like don't have time for yourself. But that's kind of what they encourage. But at the same time, there's a lot of self-love that's lacking. in the whole world, but especially on a mission because it's never about you. So sometimes a lot of girls like didn't know how to take care of themselves, like wouldn't eat lunches, wouldn't eat dinner. So by the time that I was in my like last 3 or 4 months of the mission, I didn't really notice it, but I'd been walking a lot. I'd been eating really small portions that were getting too small. But at that time, I didn't really think anything of it, and I was never that hungry. And I remember specifically these comments like here and there that didn't register anything to me, that there was like red flags. But I was just like, that's weird. Like one of my mission leaders was just like, you look so skinny, like you lost a lot of weight. You look like you lost like 10 pounds since I last saw you. And her husband was like, why are you losing weight? Like, don't lose any more weight. That scares me. And I was like, I'm fine. Like, if anything, I'm at like a better place than I've ever been at. And I had a companion that was just like so sweet. And she'd like look at me like she was gonna freaking cry. And she's like, you barely eat anything. Like, eat a little more. And I'd be like, it's fine. She was like so nice to me. And I was like, I'm okay. It's fine. And people like would make comments. They're like, yeah, you eat like a child. I'm like, excuse me? I eat a normal portion. And I didn't think much of it, but I was like grinding, I was going, and I loved being a missionary. And so by my last area, I was in an area where we walked a lot because we didn't have that many miles in our car, and it was hot and it was sweaty, and it was like summertime, but I was barely eating. And if I was eating, like, I don't know how to eat. Like, I'm still figuring it out, but like I would eat nachos for freaking breakfast and then not eat anything till like the end of the night, and it's like 10:30. I'm like, frick, I'm kind of hungry. And it didn't register to me that I was being that unhealthy. It was almost kind of funny to me. I was like, all I do is eat candy and eat nachos, but that's not cool. It's unhealthy. So I got home. I didn't even think that I had lost weight. I kind of forgot that people had said that. And I saw friends that hadn't seen me like in a couple years, and they're like, whoa, you look so good. You look so fit. I was like, what? I look fit. And I was just kind of stoked on it. I was like, oh, I didn't realize how much weight I lost. So then I look online at pictures from my mission and pictures from Hawaii my freshman year in high school, and I was just like disgusted. I was like, wow. Did anybody like see my cheeks? Did they see like how big my legs were? Like, I felt so grossed out by myself, and that's terrible that girls, we feel that way, that we like literally think we're disgusting sometimes. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I need to like keep this up. And I finally felt good because I came home and I was like, wow, I'm fitting into these things that I didn't fit into before my mission that like finally fit. And I was able to wear the things I wanted. And I was at home for a month, and that was decent, but it still was like kind of an issue, but I didn't tell anybody. And so then I went off to Hawaii, where it's like freaking hot as hell. You're broke as ever. Food is so expensive, and all you want to do like is be with your friends at the beach. And growing up in San Diego and then living in Hawaii, like that is like the beach scene. We're like always in a bathing suit, always looking at other people. People are always looking at you. And so when I was there, I didn't even notice till I left at the end of that semester that I lost like 10 more pounds, which is scary because I don't weigh that much. I'm a very short person. So losing that much weight in a period of time, like, was like a fourth of my body weight. And I just lost any muscle that I had. And I just tried to live, but I was surprisingly so happy. I didn't think about it. It was like a thing in my subconscious that I tried to not think about, and I pushed to the back, just like all my other issues with like depression, anxiety, whatever. I was like, oh, put it in the back. I don't want to look at it. And I loved every second of it. I was like, I love my friends. I hate school, but I love my friends. I love the beach. I love all this stuff. Like, and you know, my parents were like, don't get a job. We want you focusing on school. And I was like, yeah. But like, then I had no money. And so I like felt, I didn't want to ask. And then when I did ask, it was like, okay, I can't make $40 last 2.5 weeks in Hawaii. Like that's like enough for a couple pieces of fruit and like almond milk. And so I just got to the point too where I was like, didn't want to be sick anymore. I just had this fear with food that was like, food does nothing for me. It literally makes me sick. I don't really have anything that I like. I got super picky, and I still am, and it's really hard for me to find things that I like. And so I I was barely eating. I was like, you know what? I hate wasting food. I'm just gonna clean everything out of my drawer and just start eating that. So all I ate was like Chewy bars, Goldfish, and like sugar cereal, and that was it. And I would barely like eat a day. I was still not aware of like what was going on, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so tired and so dizzy all the time, and I always feel like I'm gonna like faint, or like I always feel kind of nauseous. So I was like, I'm 100% anemic. I went to the doctors, got all these blood tests. They took like 10 vials of my blood, and then they're like, you're fine. Maybe you just need more sleep. And I was like, the frick, I sleep. Like, what are you talking about? And so then I had the thought that I was like, you know what? Maybe I have an issue with what I'm eating, because I was starting to think about it more. And I like Googled it, and I was like, okay, well, like girls that have eating disorders, like I just thought like of the most extreme thing, like just bones, like almost dying, like it's just terrible. And at that point, like I had never thrown up, so I was like, I just thought of like bulimia, and I was like, I'm not that. And I looked it up, and it was like a simple definition that was just like an obsession with food, or not eating food, and body image, and something that just like starts taking over your life. And I was like, what? And then I looked at the list of all these things that were like symptoms or signals that you might have an eating disorder, and every single one was right and checked off. And that scared me so much, because I was like, I don't have that. I do not want to be dramatic. I do not want to tell anybody, because then I don't want to like cause attention, especially if this isn't even a thing. But it just kind of kept going on. And so I finally told a couple friends. I was like, I think I'm having like issues with eating. They're like, oh, really? And like, I only told a couple friends, and they were really helpful. And I told my mom, and I think she didn't know what to do, because she was like, what? Okay, I didn't see that coming, but okay. And then like, we didn't talk about it until I came home like 4 or 5 months later. And so in that time, I'm still super happy, but it started like a little bit each day, like getting in the way, because I would get out of a car where I would stand up, and I would either fall over, or I felt like I was gonna fall over, or sometimes like I'd get up. I remember getting up and falling into the wall, and then I was literally there for like 25 seconds, and my sister was visiting, and I like looked up, and I had no idea who she was. Like I was like out of it, and she was like, are you okay? And that started to scare me, because I started to see things that were scaring me.